Welcome back to Rachel B. the Healthy We.
Now that we finished our chicken stock, we went ahead and strained all the bones and removed that. We placed it back on our low heat, and now we're going to go ahead and add in our onions and our potatoes. I'm using a small baby yellow potato, as that is my husband's preference. If you like red potatoes or regular russet, you can do that. However, I do caution that they have the most starch, so go ahead and maybe try and use a red potato or a golden yellow. And then I'm going to use red onion. Again, you don't have to be super particular with how you do the chopping on this particular soup, because we are going to be blending it because we're doing a smooth, creamy texture. So because we're going to be doing that, we're going to go ahead and be able to get rid of any chunks if you didn't get stuff just right. So I'm going to go ahead and add this in here. And once all the vegetation, which is again just the potatoes and the onions, have been added, I'm going to turn this back up to a medium. Once we get it up to a medium and we get it to a boil, we're going to cook it until both the onion and the potatoes are tender. Once they're tender, we will go ahead and turn the heat off, allow it to cool a little bit, and then I reserve some of the skin from my rotisserie / roasted chickens, and we're going to use a little bit of that because you want a little bit of the fat when you're making kind of just a creamy, yummy soup. So when we do that, we're going to allow it to cool so that we can then put it in the blender, and we're going to blend it down. And again, I'm just going to turn it up to a medium heat, allow it to come to a boil, wait until those potatoes are fork tender. Then we're going to go ahead and cool it a little bit so that we can get it blending to a nice creamy smoothness, and we will come back when we get to that point. All right, so I wanted to come back and show you our progress thus far. And you can see we've got the onion starting to come up to the top. We're not quite fork tender on the potatoes yet, but since we're about part of the way there, we're going to go ahead and add in, when I deboned these chickens, when I roasted them, because I used them for another recipe, an enchilada filling casserole, I reserved approximately a cup to a cup and a half of the chicken meat. So that I'm going to add in now. And we talked about the skin that I had pulled off when I did those as well. We're going to go ahead and add about 1/4 of a cup of that skin because it's quite flavorful. Since I did in fact roast them, it had lots of seasonings and spices, and so we want to go ahead and use that also to help as a thickener when we go to make the creamy, yummy soup, as will the chicken as well. You don't have to use it, and you can even use a store-bought chicken stock. I just like to make it myself because then I know what's in it. And I want to say that we started off with about 8 cups roughly of chicken stock. So that's what we had. To that, again, we added half a red onion, 1/4 of a cup of the chicken skin, a cup to a cup and a half of our chicken meat that's already cooked, and then also 2 to 2.5 cups of our golden yellow potatoes. So that's everything we've got. Again, we're going to cook it until those potatoes are fork tender. And we're back, and the potatoes are fork tender, and now we are ready to go ahead and blend it to make it a nice, smooth, creamy soup. Now again, if you just wanted to make this a broth soup, you would have added some additional vegetables such as kale and carrots and things like that, and that would have turned out great as well. But we're going to make this a creamy soup. So now we have that in the blender after it's cooled so that we can go ahead and blend it down. If you had an immersion blender, you wouldn't have had to wait for that. I normally don't, but since we've moved and I don't have all my equipment accessible, I had to go ahead and wait so I could use this blender. The other thing is that I have not added a lot of seasonings, and that is because I got so much flavor from the roasted chicken that was fully flavored up before I utilized it. If not, and you were using a regular stock that you purchased, you would have to use more seasonings such as thyme or rosemary, salt, pepper, garlic, and so on, which of course I used on the chicken, and that came through in the broth. All right, and there we have a creamy chicken and potato soup. Between the potatoes and the chicken, very yummy. Being blended down, we end up with a nice creamy soup. Here you can just leave it. Also taste test here, so you can go ahead and season appropriately. Whether that's salt, pepper, garlic. Taste it, see what you want to do with it. I like to wait till now to make sure it doesn't over salt. Or you can warm it up again to a simmer and add in cheese to make it a cheesy potato and chicken soup. So completely up to you, but enjoy. And as you can see, you made a nice, thick, and yet again, creamy potato and chicken soup. Nice and hearty as it's starting to get cool for the change of season. Fall is coming, and hope you enjoy and give it a try, and thanks for watching.